Mary, Queen of Scots, was born on December 8, 1542, at Linlithgow Palace in Scotland. Her birth came during a tumultuous period in Scottish history, just 6 days before the death of her father, King James V of Scotland. As his only surviving legitimate child, she became queen when she was just an infant. Historian Antonia Fraser notes that Mary's cradle was rocked by turmoil, highlighting the instability that marked the early days of her life. Her mother, Mary of Guise, took over as her regent, striving to secure her daughter's position in a nation fraught with political and religious conflict. Mary's early years were marked by an upbringing that was both sheltered and turbulent. The infant queen was moved to Stirling Castle for her safety, a stronghold where she could be better protected from potential kidnappers or assassins. Mary's household was well appointed, reflecting her royal status. Fraser describes her early environment as a place of refuge, yet also a gilded cage, emphasizing the dichotomy of safety and confinement that characterized her childhood. These years were spent under the watchful eyes of her guardians, with her mother remaining a powerful influence. In 1548, at the age of 5, Mary was sent to France to escape the hostilities between Scotland and England, known as the Rough Wooing. This move was orchestrated by her mother and agreed upon by the Scottish Parliament, who sought a Catholic alliance through her betrothal to the Dauphin, the future Francis II of France. Historian John Guy notes that this period was crucial in shaping Mary's identity, as she absorbed French culture and language, which would profoundly influence her throughout her life. The young queen thrived in the French court, where she received an exceptional education alongside the royal children. As a young child, Mary, Queen of Scots, enjoyed a variety of refined hobbies befitting her royal status. She was particularly fond of music and dancing, skills she honed at the French court. Mary learned to play the lute and the virginals, and she often participated in courtly dances, which were both a form of entertainment and a display of social grace. Historian Jane Dunn notes that Mary excelled in these courtly pursuits, which endeared her to the French nobility. Additionally, Mary had a passion for embroidery and needlework, activities that were not only popular among noble women of the time, but also a means of artistic expression and relaxation. Biographer Antonia Fraser describes her as an adept needlewoman whose intricate works were admired by many. These hobbies reflected her upbringing and the cultural influences of the Renaissance, contributing to her well-rounded education and the refinement that would later characterize her as a queen. Mary's education in France was comprehensive and rigorous, reflecting her status and the expectations placed upon her. She was tutored in Latin, Greek, Spanish and Italian, alongside her native Scots and French. Biographer Jane Dunn asserts that Mary's education was intended to make her a paragon of virtue and wisdom, preparing her for her future roles as queen consort and potentially as a queen regnant. Mary was often described as charismatic, vivacious and intelligent, possessing a captivating presence that charmed those around her. Contemporary accounts and historians agree on her remarkable beauty, with her tall stature, auburn hair and striking features frequently noted. John Guy emphasizes her magnetic personality and graceful demeanor, which allowed her to command attention effortlessly. Her energy and enthusiasm were evident in her love for dancing, music and hunting, activities she pursued with vigor. Mary was also known for her sharp intellect and political acumen, attributes that enabled her to navigate the complex dynamics of the French and Scottish courts. Biographer Antonia Fraser writes that Mary had an innate ability to connect with people from all walks of life, a trait that endeared her to her subjects and courtiers alike. Her behaviours reflected a blend of warmth and regal authority, making her a beloved yet controversial figure in her time. Her time in France was also marked by her close relationship with the French royal family. Mary was particularly close to her future husband Francis, with whom she shared a deep bond. Their marriage in 1558, when Mary was 15 and Francis 14, was a significant political alliance. It further cemented the old alliance between Scotland and France, much to the dismay of Protestant England. Historian Jenny Wormald emphasises that Mary's union with Francis represented the zenith of her life's early promise and the height of her youthful happiness. Mary had a complex and evolving relationship with Catherine de' Medici during her childhood in France. Catherine de' Medici was the wife of King Henry II of France and the mother of Francis II, to whom Mary was betrothed and later married. Initially, Catherine welcomed Mary into the French court, recognizing the political advantages of her presence and marriage to Francis. As Antonia Fraser notes in Mary, Queen of Scots, Catherine saw Mary as a valuable asset, a means to solidify the alliance between France and Scotland. Mary's charm and beauty made her popular at the French court, and she was often in the company of Catherine's children, which helped to foster a cordial relationship in the early years. However, this relationship grew more strained over time, particularly as Mary's influence and favour with King Henry II became more apparent. Catherine, known for her political acumen and desire to maintain power, grew wary of Mary's growing prominence. Historian John Guy highlights in Queen of Scots the true life of Mary Stuart, that Catherine de' Medici's initial warmth towards Mary cooled significantly as she perceived the young queen's potential threat to her own influence at court. When Mary married Francis in 1558 and became Queen of France in 1559, her status significantly elevated. Catherine's position as Queen Mother was also elevated after Henry II's death, but her influence was challenged by Mary's new role. Jane Donne, in Elizabeth and Mary, Cousins, Rivals, Queens, states that Catherine de' Medici found herself in the difficult position of having to balance her affection for Mary with the political realities of maintaining her own power and that of her children. After Francis's death in 1560, Catherine's attitude towards Mary became more pragmatic and less affectionate. Without her husband's protection, Mary's position at the French court became more precarious. Alison Weir writes in Mary, Queen of Scots and the Murder of Lord Darnley, Catherine saw an opportunity to reassert her dominance and subtly pushed Mary towards returning to Scotland, where she would be less of a threat. The relationship between Mary and Catherine was marked by a blend of genuine affection and underlying political tension. As Rosalind K. Marshall notes in Mary, Queen of Scots, An Illustrated Life, Catherine de' Medici's relationship with Mary was emblematic of the intricate and often treacherous dynamics of power within the French court, where alliances could shift as swiftly as the wind. Despite their initial closeness, the pressures of court politics and personal ambition ultimately defined the nature of their interactions. Despite her privileged position, Mary's years in France were not without their challenges. She was acutely aware of her role as a political pawn in the complex web of European politics. Mary's letters from this period reveal a young woman who was both aware of and burdened by her royal responsibilities. Fraser describes her as remarkably mature for her age, grappling with the expectations and pressures that came with her status. The death of her husband Francis in 1560, shortly after he became king, marked a turning point in her life, plunging her into a period of uncertainty. Mary returned to Scotland in 1561, a widow at the age of 18. The Scotland she returned to was very different from the one she had left, now heavily influenced by Protestant reformers like John Knox. Mary's childhood and formative years in France had not prepared her for the religious and political strife she encountered upon her return. Biographer Alison Weir writes that Mary's return to Scotland was akin to entering a lion's den, as she navigated the treacherous landscape of her homeland with its factions and feuds. Mary's childhood and youth were marked by a blend of privilege, education, and political intrigue. Her experiences in Scotland and France shaped her into a complex and multifaceted figure, whose life would continue to be defined by the intersection of personal ambition and political necessity. Historian Rosalind K. Marshall encapsulates Mary's early life by noting, her childhood was a microcosm of the grandeur and peril that would define her tragic reign. Through a combination of shelter and strife, Mary, Queen of Scots, emerged as one of history's most fascinating and enigmatic monarchs. Thank you for joining me on this special journey through the childhood of Mary, Queen of Scots. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like and share it with other royal enthusiasts. Until next time, keep loving history and stay curious.